Good afternoon, all, and welcome to our first Inner Core series session. We are very excited about the content that we're going to cover today, and we trust that you will enjoy the series that we have put together. Before we go into the program for today's workshop, I'd like to draw your attention to a video from Malcolm, who unfortunately isn't able to participate in today's session. So, Brollies, please turn your volume up, remain muted during the session as I hand over to the team for the video to be played.
Good morning, fellow Brollies. I hope you're all doing well today. I thought I'd do this quick video to you this morning because unfortunately I've been called away to a crucial meeting with the MEC in Gauteng Parks Town this afternoon at 2 o'clock. So I'll be going to that meeting and then I'm going to gravitate back to the Inner Core series a little bit later, but I'm going to miss the opening. So I thought, let me send a video of encouragement. Let me just say to you, thank you for accepting the invitation that I sent out. And the purpose of the Inner Core series is really to make sure that you are adequately engaged, you're equipped and you're empowered as leaders within our business, because your role is so critical. It's crucial not only that you look after yourselves, but it's about the teams that you look after, the people you motivate, the clients you engage with. And we are in difficult times. I mean, with whichever country we go to across the continent, it is difficult. It's not easy. It's not easy to be a leader. It's not easy to show leadership in these times. But I must say, from the engagements with the 270 people that I've chatted to over the last week or so in the business, you guys are doing a sterling job. So thank you for that. But what the purpose of these Inner Core series is to say, in our current business environment, what do you need? What do we need to do to equip you with those skill sets to really take care of what is precious to us? And that's our people, our clients, and the ability to lead during challenging times. And it reminded me of, and I know I always quote Nelson Mandela, and excuse me for doing it again, but it reminds me of a great quote of his where he said, the greatest glory of living lies not in never failing, but in rising after every time we fail. And I can just talk from personal experience that I've fallen many times, but it's that ability to rise after the fall that is so crucial, and that ability to be able to inspire and lead others in spite of that, in spite of your shortcomings, in spite of anything that you are. And how do you rise to be more than what you are at the moment? And I think that's the purpose of the Inner Core series. The Inner Core series is there to say, you guys have been selected as our leaders within our business, and we would like to engage with you. We would like to equip you. We would like to say, how can we add value to what you're doing? And what do you need for us to do to become that change agent that we need in our lives? Because that's what we need to be at the moment. Change agents, adaptive, progressive, and nimble, thinking on our feet. So hopefully these series will equip you with skills that you need and add value to your lives. So thank you very much, and I'll see you a little bit later.
Thank you so much, Malcolm. We appreciate the encouragement. And to reiterate what Malcolm said, our Inner Core series has been specifically designed for you to walk away with tangible, practical resources to assist you in leading our Brollies through the various challenges they might be facing. To assist with today's workshop, we have invited in Marina Pretorius and Ingrid Dubison-Nasai. For those that attended Tuesday's core session, you will recognize Ingrid from that session. For those that didn't join us on Tuesday, we do have the recordings available for you and your teams. Just drop us a mail on Brol Cares and we will send you the link. Ingrid is an organizational psychologist specializing in applied neuroscience in the work context. She's also the author of a book, Fight, Flight, or Flourish: How Neuroscience Can Unlock Human Potential. She comes with a wealth of knowledge and has worked with and empowered many corporates on this subject matter. Marina, she's a highly experienced industrial and organizational psychologist with demonstrated history of working in the human resources industry and consulting. She's professionally skilled in talent management, coaching, employee engagement, psychometric assessments, organizational development, and change management. Marina may be a familiar face for some people in the audience today, and she is currently consulting for BPG and working closely in partnership with the group human capital team. Ladies, thank you for being with us today, and I'm going to hand over to you to take us through today's session. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much, Nolene. I'm going to just share my screen there. There we go. And let me go off and reveal myself to you. It's really a warm pleasure. I'm just going to do a few slides, and then also you'll see Marina checking in and giving structure to our hour and a half together. Yeah, it's a mouthful, building your well-being and well-doing, and we do not promise you miracles, but we do know that those that put in the effort, those that are inspired, as Malcolm said, and perspire, they really reap the benefits when it comes to building superpower. So I want you to, just to place you on the call, you'll see these little icons, and wherever there's a hashtag Nero Insight is where you need to dig a little bit deeper as a leader, and it's reflection. So as we know, the brain is malleable, but if we can't manage our emotions, we can't manage our lives. Even don't have an inkling of idea to manage others and manage or lead their lives. So what I'm encouraging you to do in the chat box is to put in one word that describes your state of mind at the moment. And it always reminds me if I'm in a New York state of mind, but I'm sure for a lot of us at the moment it's hardly rosy. But so try and be honest and authentic, as we often say in leadership. And that's kind of one of the key skills that we also will be embroidering on today. It's called emotional self-regulation. Leaders that can put their feelings in words, name it to tame it, they really have a much better chance of being neutral when the stakes are high, and being very rational and caring. So I'm not going to check in. I'm busy driving the keyboard here. I'm now going to press the science button and propose to you a model that I really love. And this is really work that I've built over years and years of inspiration and perspiration. And it's grounded, and we're offering it to you. And it's really so, it's called the meta model of leadership. It's so simplistic, really. It's not 312 competencies that you need to master, but it really talks that leadership, and we all are leaders. I'm going to differentiate, maybe not now, but later, difference between leadership and leaders. But leadership in an entity, in a beautiful company like yours, it's about focus. And it's about focusing on self, focusing on others, and focusing in and on the business. So I just want to stop a little bit on this slide, because it's a very powerful thing to get for us, is that focusing on the self, that's that intrapersonal identity, your belief system, your identity as a leader. That gets built from your baby blueprints with your influential caregivers, your leaders and your peers. And that's the most difficult to change. Whatever it's called, what did Einstein call? Not Einstein called it something else, but Freud called it projection is perception. So whatever I see in the world is really what I'm projecting from who I am. So you might feel like, well, so what has today got to do with, leading others? But if you can't lead yourself, others copy that behavioral style. So I want to start with that. So the focus of today will be on focus on self and focus on others. There's some what we call a behavioral markers around that. And that means really that there's things that we do that we know from science that leaders can do, and that's why we've called it well-doing and well-being. Well-doing is what we do with and through our teams, working with and through others. I want to be very specific about the language there. And then what we're going to start off with, sorry, I started on the right, but I mean, that's what leadership is about. It's really about others, we know. But we're going to dig deep, firstly, about building your stress resilience, your own well-being, and just tapping into a little bit about this. So Marina's kindly or boldly, I think maybe is the word, shaded the bottom area out so that you're not distracted. So this is the promise that we offer you, that we're going to cover the stress resilience markers on the left, those 4 things, briefly skimming the surface, and then also the one on the right, social safety. So Marina, over to you.
Thank you, Ingra, and thank you. It's a privilege to join you as role leaders this afternoon. Like Ingra said, we are going to cover some basics on how the brain works. And you might wonder, why is it important to know how the brain works? Because we all have one. And Ingra will talk about some key concepts that underlie how our brain sees the world and why it reacts in certain ways and how it then governs our behaviors and our decisions and our reactions. Because really, we know that what we do on a conscious and an unconscious level is driven by how our brain works. We then talk about 3 steps for rapid change. The promise, as we've said repeatedly, is to equip you with some knowledge and some practical tips on strengthening yourself and how you lead. But that implies maybe some change that needs to take place. So we also want to talk about some 3 steps that can really support that change that you may have to make in how you look after yourself and your own well-being and well-doing. Thirdly, we called it the 7 brain-based superpowers to boost your leadership effectiveness. And that's just a punchy line to really talk about those key strategies that neuroscience has shown that if you add your time and your efforts into those strategies, that really can improve your performance and your well-being. Because we know that we learn from each other best, we are going to make use of 2 breakout sessions during this conversation that we have. So at 2 times in the conversation, we are going to split you out. Zoom will do that for us. And you are going to end up with 1 other colleague, and we'll give you some questions that you can then discuss with that colleague. And Zoom will then also bring you back. But when we get there, we'll talk more about the technicalities. I'm going to hand back to Ingra now to take us right into these basics of how the brain works.
Thanks, Marina. Beautifully and succinctly put. So yeah, let me just go 1 down. Right, so I want to share with you this model. It's not to intimidate you, but science, let's just call it science, is very helpful for us to understand our human behavior. So this is called the SCANS model, and it really talks about what is the things that we need to learn from science to help us be better leaders, be more influential leaders, and to make change happen and make change and learning stick. So this normally, I'm going to really just cover it very superficially. But one of the key things that I think is very important for you to get is this whole thing about how we have this model about the brain. And I know if you've heard or seen it, it's called the hand model of the brain. And it basically says, we've got these layers, an old brain, a reptilian brain, and that's why on the right-hand side it says there, we need to learn to ride the T-Rex. And then many millions of years later, the mammalian brain is proposed to be developed, and then later the Einstein or the genius brain comes online evolutionary. So we now know that that's a metaphor, but and there's lots of science behind it. But what we still can get out of that model is that the brain within a fifth of a second wants to feel safe. And if we can't learn to ride that T-Rex, it very much rides us as leaders. And that is when we try and act cool while we're thinking, while we're feeling hot. And what we know from neuroscience is that our teams, our members, our peers, whoever is engaging with us, even your partner, when you are acting cool and feeling hot, subconsciously people feel that. So a first business case for why we need to relax and be present. And then I think you've heard it in your first call. I mean, when you started this course series with all your brollies, is that whole thing about that the power lies in the subconscious. And it's this wonderful saying that our primal patterns is all powerful. We've got a blueprint of behavior and what we've learned in childhood. But make no mistake, your leaders, and you, I mean, I'm talking to you now, and I'm not talking upwards to Michael, or to Malcolm, I'm talking to you, is that people copy you for better or for worse. And that happens subconsciously. The brain goes where the influence and the power lies. And then attention is an open system. I'm going to show you that really as an exercise. There's lots of, kind of anchoring exercises, but you can choose where you choose to focus your attention. Is it a narrow focus, or is it a broad, open focus? And we need both of those attention streams. And then obviously this wonderful thing that plasticity, we can curate and build our brains as we want to. We now know that even more so than before. But there's it's not easy. It's not easy peasy, and then you've got a clever top leadership brain. It means time and intensity. And then sitting above, not above on this, but drives all of this in the brain is what we call large-scale networks. So the brain is like a super highway station. Whatever we pay attention to, we develop. And that super highway that we talk about is, believe it or not, it's social. It's not intelligence. It's social knowing, social savvy. And that's a huge, I think, wake-up call for us as leaders, because when the brain takes a rest from solving problems about where you should open your business next, or where you should develop new properties, or whatever your core business is, it literally, within a split of a second, falls back into social. So we think about ourselves and we think about others. It's called the default network all the time. So any questions? I know this is, I always say this is not rocket science, it's just neuroscience, but it's powerful stuff. So the three anchors that Marina was talking about for leaders, and there's a wonderful work around it. It sounds like, we're dabbling in all the F's today, and there are a lot of F's in our lives at the moment. But we know that people that face leaders that face the facts, in other words, you deal with reality as it is versus how you want it to be, or running away from what you are afraid of it to be. Leaders that find their focus, and those that make a choice, they flex their intellectual and their social muscle and their emotional muscle, the whole experience in the mind and the brain to flourishing, they spiral upwards. So I'm going to quickly then just take you through each one of these drivers, focus you on facing the facts, what it means to find your focus, and then we're going to go and discuss it. So I'm priming you now. What do they say in the classics? A short pencil is more powerful than a long memory. So try and just make a note of something that grabs you now, because in your breakout rooms of threes, we are going to ask you to reflect on this, okay, so that you don't get into the room and you wonder, okay, so now what must we do again? You must talk about what you've learned in this very fast intro session. So then facing the facts. Why is it important for leaders, you guys that sit on your seats in front of us and each other today, to face the facts? So the brain wants clarity. It doesn't always want certainty. It craves certainty, but without clarity, it really flicks over into dysfunction. it becomes disorientated, and it even becomes disordered. That's what we call mental illness. So at the moment, I said that on previously to all of you that were on the call and those that weren't, I think most of us are on the spectrum at the moment. Are we disorientated or are we disordered? But we feel slightly disorientated. And there are serious things that we can, that's on that spectrum, and we're not making light of it. So facing the facts is deal with our context. Our context at the moment is not what it used to be. And also what I want you to get into this is that the words that we use, and then it's a core thing of constructionist theory about leadership. Be very intentional leaders about the words that you use, because those words is what people copy and make build into their language. And the words on this slide is the difference between work-life balance. We also, our work-life balance is gone. But we say at the moment it's not work-life balance that's going on for all of us and our teams. Our basic needs are not met. Our needs for belonging, to socially engage with each other, our need for orientation and control, and our need for competence, self-esteem to get ahead and onwards in life. But for most people, I suppose in Pan-Africa, it's a privilege that has the luxury of the first need. For example, in South Africa, it's a reality that access to fresh water and social distancing is not possible. People live in small spaces, and so they, never mind their psychological needs, their basic physiological needs aren't met. Why is that important for you as a leader? It talks about that shared experience that we need to take in and be very cognizant about it, be empathetic towards it. If these needs aren't met, we flick over into dysfunction. It affects our immune system. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, and we're more prone to disease, chronic diseases, and so forth. What is the impact of this on leaders? I don't know if you've ever heard about this thing. It's called the inverted U-curve of performance. And leaders typically flourish at a certain point, and they spiral downwards. And what if the stress gets too much? So what we know with current large-scale data is that most of our leaders are flicking over into that slightly between fatigue and exhaustion. We are burnt out and we are struggling. So right. So next thing is then to find your context is tough. Life ain't what it used to be. The way out of it is to find your focus, and that means that you need to be present as a leader. Present in the here and now, not present in the past or present in the future. And the anchor for that, people, is what can you do in the present? You can think definitely in the past. You can ruminate, we say. I mean, I love that saying, is that women, it's not a saying, it's a serious body of research, emotional regulation. So women typically ruminate, men ruminate and women catastrophize about the future, and we all have guilt and shame about the past typically, because the brain, when it's not solving problems, it falls back into the default mode. So all those bubbles are very dense. The way out is for leaders, it's a cornerstone of adaptive leadership. And listen to this, I don't know, we always think we must plan and reflect, and yes, so strategy sits in where the bubbles are dense. Because we can't do strategy and business plans and budgets and whatever without looking into the future and reflecting into the past. But we know from the sciences, and many sciences, not just the brain sciences, that to be truly present, that's where the maximum bandwidth sits. So if you can make sure that there's a business case behind it, if you can get your attention to be in the moment, right here, right now, your working memory spikes up and you make better decisions. You get better insights and everybody wins. So I love this quote by Daniel Kahneman. Odd as it may seem, I am my remembering self, and the experiencing self who does my living is like a stranger to me. So that's a question to you. I mean, how much of your experiencing self, leader, are you tuned into? And the key to the experiential self is the breath. So there's no rocket science to it. The only way that you can get present in the presence is through working through your body and your breath. You can't think yourself into the present. Where the mind goes, the breath goes. Where the breath goes, the mind goes. So that is really what I would encourage you all to do, is to, there's lots of apps, I know you guys use them as well, is to pay attention to how you attend. And the key is whatever's in red. The rest is all that you must just absorb. We're obviously bulldozing you here with content-rich information, but be aware that there's two modes that we pay attention as leaders: the narrative focus, the story mode, the past and the future. And then there's the experiential mode. And so the E word, the experiential focus, that's where we need to tap more into. And some of us have the luxury, the blessing, I can almost say, to have realized that what is the beauty of being present. So I'm challenging you that exercise is a way to get you present. Listening to music, classical music, and also gets you present. But the surefire way to get you being present in the moment is your two divine straws. And that is your nose, people. You've got to start doing breathing. Breathing in and out through your nose. Okay, and you've got lots of exercises on it. But the breath is the manual override for the nervous system. Then the last one, and then we're going to get into the breakout rooms, is this choice, and that's why we shouted it out loud to you there. I think I've got about 2 minutes left, and then we will go into the breakout rooms. Is we are what we repeatedly do. So I want to put it to you: if you are not slowing down your attention, you think you don't have a choice, but everything we now know is a choice. The more you can slow down your thinking, the more you are becoming aware of your choices. And that's why a conversation with a wise person across your Zoom call, or a coach, or even the whiteboard, or what was it, that one lovely movie where she spoke to the wall, reflecting is a way for you to slow down your thinking, as Daniel Kahneman said. So there's 7 superpowers here, strategies. There's all science behind it. We now know that stress, sleep, and mood are highly interrelated, and that's what I want to tap into a little bit more. Stress, sleep, stillness of mind, states of mood, and self-regulation is about well-being. Leaders that can tick that off for themselves and for their teams have got well-being sorted or buffered. Let's say buffer themselves and their teams against disorientation or mental ill health or being unwell. Social connectivity and stratification of goals is about well-doing. And I just want to check out with this one, and then we'll move on. But those of you that read the classics, as Jean-Paul Sartre said, we are our choices. If you want to know what choices you make, look at your life leaders. Look at your employee well-being scores. I don't know if you measure employee health and well-being, but what you've chosen to do is what your life shows. So this I went through in detail the other day. I would like to do a bit more of this, but I'm not sure if we've got enough time. I'm happy to quickly skim through that again, and then we break out. I'd really like you to have when we press the experience button, I've now pressed the science button so that you can understand all the content. And then after the break, I'm going to make you do some exercises. So just to place you on that. So I'm now going to discuss just quickly the 7 superpowers. And we've called it leader-manager behavioral strategies. And why that? Because, we are all leaders and managers. If you go back to that 4 quadrant approach, is that we shift between leadership and management. And leadership is behavior. Management we can learn, but leadership is behavior, and that is tricky to change unless you follow the recipe and you have effort and repetition. So stress right, I mean, we spoke about that earlier this week. So I'm talking to you now as leaders. Okay, so what we say with leadership intelligence and leadership superpowers, you can't typically what we do is we try and manage others, and then we reverse that, and we try and, when it doesn't work, we start being more aware of what sits behind their behavior. And then finally we might realize that, you know, but maybe we are a cause of that problematic or positive behavior, and then we become aware of ourselves, and then we manage ourselves better. But that's for few of us. Most people are so burdened with doing the right thing at the right time in the corporate world that they forget this self-awareness. It's all about you, and then when you've got that right, you can model that to people in the world. So you need to learn how to stress right, leaders, and that means you need to go to bed at a certain time. You need official I've underlined that, unplugged time as a team, as a company. Nobody is available on Saturday morning at 11 for a quick dry run. No, whatever, that's what I hope for. And then these things about purposeful pauses. Where do we take purposeful pauses? I'd love to speak about exercise, but there's no time today. But yeah, the silver bullets to manage your stress. Sleep. We want you to go to bed in a state of grace. I'll talk a little bit about that later. People that count their blessings when they go to bed, they have deeper dreams, they wake up fresh, and they got more ahas. Being present is what we spoke about earlier this week. And it's all about that thing that you can't wash off blood with more blood. You've got to work, you've got to become aware of your body, leaders, out of your brain and into your body, out of your thinking brain and into your experiencing body. Then self-regulation of your emotions. That's about purposeful pauses, mindful walking, and then also what I did earlier, that name it to tame it. And then the well-being part, which we'll tackle at the end, is social first, and then that self-transcendence, very nice word, but that's where we work for hours, the flow state, and people do that when they are on purpose. So I am over time here a little bit, but I want you to now go over to you. It's over to you. Reflect on your well-being. What we've just presented, there are 2 questions there. What insight about the brain stands out for you? One thing, and what I would encourage you to do as we dial you into the breakout rooms is to honor the thing of a short pencil is more powerful than a long memory. Make a note of it. Your brain will make a note of it. And what facts do you need to face about your own well-being? Thank you.
Thank you, Ingra. So what you are saying is that we are giving everyone a pause moment now to be in the present and to reflect what you've heard now, you know, with someone else, and to also help us process that a bit. So to do that, Zoom is going to push you out now into a breakout room, everyone. And it's going to do it randomly. So you will end up with another colleague to have this conversation. If it happens that you are not landing with someone else, please, you'll see there's a button that says leave room. You'll come back to the main room, or put a message in the chat so that we can then move you to be with someone. The recording or the Zoom functionality will also pull you back after 10 minutes. So you're going to have 10 minutes to share with one another what you've heard now and discuss those 2 questions. To anyone who listens to this recording of the presentation where you found it, you are also welcome to participate in this conversation and in this exercise. You will also have 10 minutes to either write this down or grab someone and discuss it with them. And then, so over to you, Josh. If you can push everyone else out, we will see you then again in 10 minutes time. So welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue with the conversation and focusing more on how to use this information that Ingra has now shared with us.
Right, so welcome back everybody, and thank you. I ended up talking wonderfully with two of your colleagues, so I'll post that later, where you can get tips from endurance athlete and cycling and things like that. But I think what we are saying is that we are leading very hectic and fast lives, and that I can imagine the kind of the real-time pressure that you guys are under, because I mean it's not like it's not a grey area, the business that you're in. It's not shades of grey. You either deliver or you don't. A property gets developed or built or it doesn't. So I hear what you say. So I want to press the experience button now. I mean, just see with timing wise, I'll talk even faster now, but speeding up while I'm teaching you to slow down, if that's possible. The takeout for leadership, it's this word that's been thoroughly, I suppose, we can almost say we've got resilience fatigue at the moment, because everybody tells us, never mind COVID fatigue, we just maxed out with trying to be resilient, and what does it mean? So the science that we follow in this program tells us, what, you've got to work through your body, people. So this is the exercise that we did earlier this week. And it really is, I mean, there's no time now for us to do it again, but you've had experienced motivational speakers talk about it. You've got apps and so forth. But what I encourage you to do is what we call attention awareness. And it's a simple payoff line that says sunshine in and darkness out. And that means, like we said on the previous screen, this is a skill, mindfulness awareness, mindful attention awareness, being present in the current moment through breath awareness, reverses cortisol out of your midbrain. It flushes it with rich oxygen, the same as Prozac does, or going to the gym, but without the buckets of sweat. So it's a not negotiable, and you don't need to go to a Buddhist ashram or anywhere beyond your house. You sit on your chair before you go onto your call every day. You breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. If you're really stressed, you clench your fists so that the muscles contract, and you breathe in. Sunshine in, darkness out. So that is if you do that now and you really contract your muscles, you'll feel the release. You'll feel the release of the muscle. You'll feel the rich oxygen flooding your brain and, well, not your body immediately, but that's the golden thread exercise that you can do for mindfulness. We did it the other day, and I mean, there's beautiful exercises. So this is another thing. I normally have a picture on here about, being Buddha at work and snakes and suits or pathology, and how higher a top level leadership. Because the higher we go, the more it's become a badge that doing the red eye. I slept so little last night, and therefore XYZ. So this is the book that Arianna Huffington wrote, The Sleep Revolution, which you must read as a leader. I'll send this short scale. It's the world's gold standard on sleepiness. And believe it or not, you will be surprised where top management sits. And top management at the moment is becoming, I must not even say that, because that band is becoming broader. It's not just the 5 people at the top, it's the middle to the top, and that bracket creep is increasing, as we know. I don't have time to do this, but I'll send it to you. If not, you can Google the Epworth Sleepiness Scale. It measures your propensity to nod off. So for a lot of us, we don't nod off because we are either on highly caffeinated drinks. I don't want to mention brand names, but you know what I mean, or triple espresso in the morning. So this is a wonderful scale to do. I really wanted to get into focusing on purpose, because we've now covered well-being. Well-doing. So I've covered two things. I mean, there's lots more to it. I've shared with you the what we call the smallest manipulation with the biggest effect size. Being present has got a huge spin-off in your mood, which drives your positivity, which drives profit. Positive people have a direct influence on the bottom line. That's your business case. Good. So now let's focus on purpose. Apologies, a bit of Afrikaans there. Refocus on purpose, lean into your strengths. So what we do there as leaders, we typically are not, we've got what we call learned behaviors. So that means I've forgotten what my strengths are. I've forgotten what inspires me. I've forgotten really what the word purpose means. And we say, you know what, evolution has wired you with a reward center and an avoidance center in the brain, approach and avoidance. And whatever you love doing, what you're naturally inspired by, is your talents. And you know what that is. If you haven't measured it, there's lots of tools that Marina can put you in touch with. But what we're saying is that it typically drives us in the corporate world is this, we've got learned behavior instead of our natural strengths. And the sooner you can lean into your strengths, that which gives you joy, what drives your engine, and you can link what you hate doing to what you love doing, the quicker the brain is back on target and it sees things as helping you in your way, getting you on your way instead of seeing things are in your way. So you quickly immediately see, well, I'm on my way to this. It's what I love doing, and the brain finds those GPS coordinates doing it. So this is an exercise that I want you to try, and we also spoke about it on earlier this week. So purpose and being on purpose really means that you need to tap into what makes people happy. And often it's not their jobs. Okay, we would love it to be our jobs, and if there's an overlap between that, then you're in flow and you've got an inspired workforce. But you can do that, it's just called linking. The brain can make meaning out of anything if the why is big enough. So what I want you to do, and we spoke about it earlier this week, it's a wonderful exercise this for you. It's just called the Strengths Finder. I mean, there's very hectic psychometric instruments even on it. But the superpower is for you to know. If I ask you, do you know what fills your tank? What revs your engine, leader? And what are you here to do? And how do you make a difference? So that is the part of purpose. And when we know that, versus number 4, what is that? I didn't write the word there because it's professionally not good to do. But a lot of us have got a long list about what we suck at. What are we not good at? What is our weaknesses? And what we know in the game, what is a small lever to push? What is the smallest lever to push that's got the biggest effect size on your people? Is to have these discussions about what revs their engine. So there's this slide here. It's 3 o'clock. I love this work. It's called, and there's lots of anchors that sits into focusing on others. One of the mainstream fashion statements at the moment is called social safety or psychological safety, and it's grounded in solid work, of course. But what I want to focus on is applying people to their strengths, which is the little exercise that I've just given to you, very unacademically or whatever. What revs your engine? What do you want to have more of in your work? And then to link that almost in your scorecards, we link that to the company's purpose. There's a place on the scorecard, if you have scorecards or not, I'm not sure, what is my personal purpose? And that means just how do you play people to their strengths. But if there's a formal structure in your employment processes and your employee experience charters or I don't know, tools, and if you even don't have it, just make a note of it on a to-do list where you don't have to have a contract or a fancy interface to do it. So social safety, there's 5 things that I wanted to touch on, and then it's well-doing. So as leaders, we know that there's a thing called focusing on others. I spoke about it earlier. We are wired, we learn by doing. That's why babies can't talk. For the first year, they just literally absorb expressions and their nature forms. The same happens at work, escalated and being very well covered under our learned behavior. But leaders, you guys that's on the call today, check this word called your emotional contagion, and you will know the vibe in your team is often not a function of people being poor performers or whatever. It's a function of the language that you as leaders use, the tone of your voice, and we call this subconscious processing. The brain within a fifth of a second decides, what am I reading on my leader's face? Is it pro-social or is it anti-social? And believe it or not, I mean, believe it, we all know that. This hypervigilance of the virtual world spikes that even more because we can't sense, we can't attune to what's going on around us. So really you almost need to amplify, not like, fake smiles and whatever, but be aware that you smile from the heart, take your breathing practice, be present before you go online, and make sure that you create a social safe place for people. Then number 3, 4 and 4 is about building micro actions and reducing microaggressions. It's lovely work. But if you don't, the devil is in the detail. If you don't look after building micro, I'm going to give you examples now of micro affirmations, affirming the positive to everybody at the same time if you can, across race, gender, age, and whatever else diversity measures we have. And eliminating your aggressions, your microaggressions. If you don't do that, you're going to have macro problems. Low climate, low engagement, low profit and sustainability over the long term. Of course, you've got to have the right people on the bus. I'm not saying that. And then number 5 is share your time, story, and build shared goals. We now know that the surefire way to build and engage workforce is, people need clarity. What is my job? What am I here to do? Leaders need to spend time with people, shared experience. And leaders, you create the shared experience. Your vibe, the tone that you set, the weather climate that you create is what people copy. Right, so what does it mean? Sorry, a bit more action. 5-point plan. Reflect on your well-doing. So this is your impact on others, and they copy you for better or for worse. The quicker we can be intentional about these things, what they call, don't be unconscious. Don't have a unconscious bias or unconscious. Be conscious about how these things work and put in the behavioral markers. Do these things. So check your emotional contagion. I spoke about that. That's the language that you use. Your jargon that you use in the corporate world or in your team. Is it exclusive to other parts of the team? Is it some funny local Fanagalo or what that we call in South Africa, a lingo that only the locals understand and not your global pan-African language? It's a exclusion that you create, social unsafe environment. And then a big thing is your tone of voice. So it's what they call that subconscious behavior, those markers. The tone of your voice, are you really smiling from eye to eye, or is it this fake smile? We know all of those things. Play people to their strengths. I've spoken about that almost, but align personal purpose with the company purpose. And that means, like I said before, do it. Take a short pencil and link it to the long-term purpose of your company. I'm sure you've got a brilliant, succinct company purpose. I can sense it in the way that you run these webinars. And I mean, people are driven and they're aspirational. Make sure that gets linked from individual to corporate vision. From abstraction to anchoring. It's called anchoring. And then micro actions of inclusion, affirmations. Remember, if you don't include people, make eye contact with all. It's not always easy now, but I've given you some primers there. And then eliminate, so microaggressions. If you don't look at these micro things, they become macro problems. So we typically resonate, obviously, oxytocin, we gel with others and not with others. So it's the way it is. But as leaders, you need to build an in-group. Not us versus them, us versus the them would be your competition, your external competition, not HR versus finance, or marketing versus finance, conceptuals versus the analytics. And then number 5, intentionally share your time story and allow others to share and build share goals. So we now know that safety is built what we call through spiritual imperfection. I don't go to work and I share the latest blueprint for transformation. I share my weaknesses. I share how I'm struggling with my mental health today, how I'm burnt out and I can't take it anymore. And that builds humanity and well-doing as a leader. People relate to you humanly. You still drive the scoreboard, but you're in tune. It's called attunement. Right, Marina, any questions or how you want to maybe just step into that, or anybody on the call? But Marina, maybe it's a good time for you to again just get us back into deliverables and a reflective practice for the leaders.
Thank you, Ingra. Yes, I think it's powerful to know that we have to look after ourselves, but then we also have this superpower as leaders to now go and touch our teams, not just with this information, but with the practices that we very practically do from here. So leaders, we're going to ask you to break out again and then reflect on these 2 questions. So what insight about the brain are you going to share with your team tomorrow? So you have the opportunity to take what was discussed here and what insights you have and just go and share it with them so that they can share in it. But then also we'd like you to reflect a little bit on what is it that you can do tomorrow to grow the social safety in your team. You may have great social safety. And a tip, one of the things could be that you ask your team, what is it that they think you as a team can do to grow the social safety? But it's just the fact and of talking about it and taking it to your team might already be an intervention in that way. But we'd like you to chat to one another and to talk a little bit about that. What can you take from this workshop today into your teams tomorrow in your meetings? So we're going to again use the Zoom breakout functionality. It'll work exactly the same, but you will probably end up with someone else in this time. We're going to post the questions also in the chat so that you have them at hand while you are out in the breakout rooms. So thank you very much, Joss.
We're back. Welcome back in our large group. So summarize, I think we're on the hour, if I'm not mistaken, very close. We don't want you to be late. We want to have a full stop on the hour. So face the facts, find the focus, flex to flourishing, and then full stop. We're out of here so that you can go and pause and reflect. But leadership is about focus. To summarize, we've discovered, we've taken a 3-pronged approach. Three facts and 7 superpowers is the formula. I've written it there also in 5 points. It's in a different way if you academically inclined. But I hope this was of benefit to you. And any questions, you can type in the chat or email your Brolly Human Capital Division, or ask it now, or email me or Marina. We're here to help and simplify the complicated. Marina, any questions that you want to pose to us or in the chat?
I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, Ingra. So Alex, you're welcome to continue posting questions in the chat. What we'd like to hear from you now, you've managed to talk to one another, but we'd also like to hear from you in terms of your feedback. So I'm going to share my screen. We'd like you to take your cell phones or on your web browser where you are at the moment, and then just navigate to menti.com. When you get onto the website, www.menti.com, you can put in the code 29746957. And what will then appear is the Mentimeter. So we have 2 questions for you there. The first one, and sorry, Josh, I'm just going to ask you to give me permission to share my screen. And Ingrid, you can maybe just stop sharing, please. Thank you. Okay, so my screen should be showing right by now. So what we want to ask you then is to enter into Menti, type one word that captures your experience of today. We're going to go back to that emotional granularity, trying to identify that experience that you've had, give it a name, and just type it there in on menti.com. So, and then use the code 29746957. Vulnerable, thank you. Excellent. So as you type in the words, you will also see them appear there on the screen. If you see a word that you relate with and that you've also experienced, you can type it as well. It's a word cloud that is being built at the moment. So it'll give us all an indication of what were those experiences that you as leaders had during this session. Something insightful, informative, interesting, and spot on. Yes, even in the conversation that I had in my breakout room, it seemed that there's a lot of opportunity to go back to the teams and build on the good things that's already happening in the teams at the moment. People supporting one another and affirming one another, which is wonderful. Thank you for all this feedback. Okay. We can see that it was definitely insightful, and we appreciate the feedback and helpful. Like Ingrid said, you're welcome to reach out to us if there's any practical application tips that you are still wondering about or that you'd like to take the information further. We'll be happy to share some more with you. I want to move on to the second question. You can continue to add in. Thank you very much for the good responses. The second question that we want to ask you is, what action are you taking from what you've learned today? It's very important that we do not just keep the information here in the front of our brain where we know about it, but that we translate it into actions and that we are purposeful in what is the next step that we want to take it. So we're seeing here being present. And a follow-up question on that is, in what context would you want to be present? In what way would you like to be present? And what will you do to help you to be present? Yes, to engage with my team as to their purpose and strengths. We also had in our quick discussion, conversation on how easy it is to just ask people, what are your strengths? And to let them write that down first so that they can reflect on it. Thank you for the feedback. Engage more with colleagues, listen more, talk less, sharing with your team. Yes, focus on the breath, breathing. I'm going to support Ingrid there in saying that you cannot underestimate this and the impact that it can have on you. Yes, breathe and be kind to yourself. Thank you. Yeah, thinking about what gives you joy. So on the screen, you can see all the things that your colleagues are saying, all the comments that are being posted onto Mentimeter. And it's wonderful to see the positive feedback and the positive actions that you can take as the leaders. Yes, take a step back. And it's part of being present and pausing, taking a purposeful pause. Thank you very much. Colleagues, it's 3 minutes to the half an hour. We really want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for the feedback. This Inner Core series is going to take place every second week, and there's going to be 5 sessions like this. We are going to bring you more topics that's also going to link up with the core series, to really take that and make it practical for you as a leader, and to give you some time and an opportunity to pause and reflect on your own leadership, you as a leader, and to take the time to build into yourself as a leader. So we want to thank you, and we wish you well. It's almost weekend, and we hope you have a good evening and a good break. Sandra, any last words from you?
No, I can just absolutely say be present, take a pause, and be on purpose.